So in the old school game Pokemon, you walk through the long grass, you fight some trainers, you say what's up to Misty, you throw some Master Balls. It's a good time. And just like most role-playing games, your power increases as you go through the game. However, your Pokemon do not level up linearly. They evolve incrementally. Now, you might say, Geoff, what is going on? Are you rebranding to a Pokemon channel? No. But this is sort of what happens when you are lifting. Muscle growth does not happen linearly. It happens almost all at once in some cases. So if you're trying to go from Geodude to Graveler to Golem, I'm trying to get to Golem right now. I think I've gone from Geodude to Graveler. Golem is a step up. We're on the way. We're doing it, people. But if you're trying to make that next step to really evolve your physique, you have to realize that muscle growth happens in spurts. Growth spurts. So in this video, we're going to talk about the various factors that might influence this quick progress. Now, the first factor is that training is a high priority. So often I hear when someone is on summer vacation, they have no school, they have no work, and training is the main focus in their life. That is when you make that fast progress. When training is really all you have to think about, all you have to worry about, your life stress is low, and you're able to really give a 100% effort. You essentially can sort of train like a professional athlete. And it's totally okay if that is not the case. Training can't always be the number one priority in your life. If that is the case, you don't have much of a life. There are going to be other things, namely work or family or social life or something else, that might bump training out of that number one spot at times. But I would say if training is not at least in your top 3, you're probably not going to see any kind of visible progress. And I really do think that stress is something that is not talked about enough. If you are constantly in a fight or flight state, your cortisol is high, you're probably just not going to make very, very good progress in the gym. Number 2 is that your training is on point. I have never ever experienced muscle growth without seeing a corresponding increase in strength for reps with good form. Yes, you can get stronger if you optimize your form like a power lifter with a big arch or squatting barely to depth, low bar, etc. But generally speaking, I think strength and size are going to be correlated as long as your form is reasonable and it is for reps with a decent amount of volume. And you're going to have to get stronger the majority of cases. It's super rare that I see someone and I'm like, let's not prioritize progressive overload. It's very, very important, and you have to have your eyes on heavier weights if you want to grow. You just have to make sure that that strength that you gain is not done by sacrificing your technique or your volume or your proximity to failure or your exercise selection, etc. Essentially, if you start training like a power lifter, well, you're not going to see the size results that you're looking for, even if the numbers on the bar go up. And that means you're going to have to track your progress. If you're not tracking your progress and you're just hoping that progressive overload will happen, maybe it will, but maybe it won't. I see people all the time where I ask for their training log, they're an onboarding client or something, and it's just silence, nothing. They don't have anything at all. And it blows my mind, okay? Not keeping a food log, fair enough, but not keeping a training log is really going to bite you in the ass. So if you're not doing it, start.
So I actually forgot two important ones. First, you have to be in good health. If you're getting sick all the time, you have cancer, it's an extreme example, but if you're not in good health, you're not going to make gains. It sounds obvious, but I see people neglect this all the time. They're staying up super late, not eating fruits, vegetables, etc. Stay healthy, my friends. And number 2, knowledge.
Knowledge.
Yes, knowledge.
Knowledge.
If you're not continually learning, and this doesn't have to be book knowledge, this can just be your own experience, but if you're not treating your training like an experiment and trying to improve that experiment over time, you're not going to keep making gains. So make sure you have those 2 things in order as well if you want to make those juicy gains.
Next, you are eating in a surplus. Sure, you can maybe theoretically gain muscle in a deficit, but it's probably going to be small amounts of muscle, and it's probably only more if you are a beginner or you are fairly high in body fat percentage. If you've been training for a couple of years now, you are below 15% body fat, and you really want to take your physique to the next level, you're going to have to be in a surplus, okay? Especially if you are hungry. If you go and you squat and then you get back and you were hungrier than normal, that energy is not preferentially going to go to fat. The reason why you are hungrier than usual is because your muscles need energy.
Give me sugar.
To grow. And if you're like, well, I can only be in a 30-calorie surplus today because some asshole on the internet said that was all you can use, well, it's not going to be every single day that's the same, okay? You can maybe do some back-of-the-napkin math and come out with a number, but the reality is if you are chronically under-eating, you're just not going to grow. Unless you're on steroids. And that might mean getting a little bit fluffy at times. 18% body fat, 20% body fat, 22, 23% body fat. It happens, and fat loss compared to muscle growth is just easier for the vast majority of people. So if you put on a little bit of fluff for the gains, it's not that big of a deal. If you put on half fat and half muscle, that is phenomenal. Some people might not be happy with that, but you should, because that's great. I'm proud of you. Also, and this might be controversial, I would not go low carb and try to gain large amounts of muscle. I don't see that working very often. I think carbs are really, really useful here, particularly starches, particularly rice. Super easy to digest, works really well, gets you full glycogen, gets you lower cortisol, gets you higher insulin, which some people might freak out about. But in the context of low stress, good sleep, training hard, decent amount of volume, progressing in the gym, you don't really need to be scared of a little bit of insulin post-workout. In other words, if you are eating like a bird, you are probably going to look like one. And proper hypertrophy training should make you hungrier because it's triggering muscle growth, which takes energy, which makes you hungrier. If you are doing way too much volume, you might not actually be hungrier after the workout because your body's like, well, we just suffered a lot of damage. We don't even want to grow. We just want to repair. We don't actually need any more energy. We just kind of want to hunker down and survive. Whereas if you do too low volume, it might not actually be enough to stimulate growth. So you want that happy medium where it's enough, but not too much. And this is going to take some experimentation. And I personally know that if my hunger levels are up and not that post-cut, I just need energy because my body thinks it's starving to death, that hunger where it's like anabolic, where you finish a workout, you're really, really hungry, and you just know that if you eat, you're going to grow.
Also, there's yet another one. I'm such a good YouTuber. Injury. If you are injured, it's tougher to make gains. So if you have a lower back injury, it'll be tough to make lower body gains. If you have a shoulder injury, it's going to be tough to make those upper body gains. Elbows, hips, knees, lots of areas can get messed up during the training process. And if you really want to grow, ideally you will be uninjured. That's not always possible, but that is the ideal situation.
By the way, thank you to Boostcamp for sponsoring this video. So tracking your training, absolutely essential. If you're not tracking your training, what are you doing? And Boostcamp allows you to do just that. Now you could use Microsoft Word, pen and paper, Excel, whatever, but I think having it all in one place in an app like Boostcamp can really help. Plus, you get access to a lot of amazing programs. I have Rampage and Ravage up on the app, so you can check those out. Give them a try, and let me know how things go. And thank you to Boostcamp for sponsoring this video. Next, sleep. It's important. It varies in how important it is to various people. For me, super important. It's actually more important than diet, I would say. If my sleep is good, but my diet isn't that good, maybe I'm not eating enough, or I'm just eating crap food or whatever, I can still grow. Whereas if my sleep is bad, but my diet is perfect, training just does not go well at all. So for me, sleep is really something to prioritize, and this is pretty normal. If you are very, very stressed out, which impacts your sleep, which impacts your stress, which impacts your sleep, it's very easy to have this sort of modern day downward spiral that really just dicks down your gains. Or you get good sleep, which reduces your stress, which gives you good sleep, which reduces your stress. You get the idea, and you get this sort of upwards virtuous cycle. So it really is up to you, and sometimes it's as simple as not using your phone before bed or drinking coffee only in the morning. Just these small stuff. There are a million sleep videos out there. Just, get to typing. Next, patience. So sometimes I think that when you're training and you're not making progress, you actually are making progress. It just doesn't really show up. And this is sort of related to the fatigue fitness model of fitness. Good sentence there. So basically it's the idea that training produces fitness adaptations, but it also produces fatigue that can mask your level of performance. And so basically when you're training, you are getting both. You feel like you're going nowhere, but that's just because fatigue is actually accumulating. And then when you take a week that is easier or a week off, and then you come back, you might actually allow those gains to show. Now, this doesn't always work. Sometimes you take a week off and you're actually weaker, but I do think that long term, sometimes if you feel like you're beating your head against a wall and you're going nowhere, just taking some time off can actually help. It might help to resensitize yourself to the training. I personally take a week or two off 1 to 2 times per year away from the gym, and I have actually found that the progress initially when I come back to the gym, I'm starting at a lower level compared to where I left off, but my long-term progress is actually better because I took that week off. So don't be afraid to take time off if you feel like you're going nowhere. And you see this all the time when people diet down for a bodybuilding show. They get very, very lean. They're not making progress, especially during the last month or two before a show, but they get this post-show rebound where they gain visible amounts of size. They're filling out really, really well, and training is going fantastically. I think is fantastically a word? Well, it is now. I think that sometimes you can make progress during the cut that doesn't actually show up. Perhaps you're triggering satellite cells, but you're not actually growing the muscle around them. And then when you're refeeding after the show, you are actually realizing the true potential of the muscle. This is a little bit more theoretical, but I do think it's possible to trigger muscle growth at a certain time and then have it actually appear significantly later. You see these charts where it's like muscle protein synthesis. It only happens in the 48 hours, 36 hours after a workout, even 24 hours when you're more advanced. I think it is possible for the body to adapt in a more long-term fashion. And realistically, you probably don't have that many of these growth spurts in your lifting career. Most people seem to have 2 to 4. You have your newbie gains at the start, and then maybe you plateau, and then now you're intermediate, so you have to figure out what works, and you double down on the commitment, and then you get your second growth spurt, and then maybe you have a third later in your training career, and then maybe potentially a fourth small one later, where it's like a few extra pounds of muscle. But that seems to be what happens. You've seen these charts where it's like, first year you gain this much, second year you gain this much, third year you gain this much. That's not what actually happens. Okay, that is entirely theoretical, and it's rare to see someone who actually gains exactly that much per year. It varies wildly because not everyone has their shit together all the time. In fact, again, most people don't, and there are going to be times in your life where you are sort of just treading water, and that is totally fine. You make the gains later when you can double down on the training process. Anyway, for more about the training process, you can check out my books. I will leave a link in a pinned comment down below. Thank you so much for everyone who has gotten the books. Feedback has been incredible. I'm still getting emails every single week, almost every single day, from people who have used the books to really optimize their training, even though I kind of hate that word. Can't believe I used that word, but gains are being made. That's the main message. So thank you so much for the support, and thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.